Last session, the Democrats made a mockery of impeachment, and we cannot allow them to become our teachers. Shrill voices should be kept far from this inquiry, lest they undermine its legitimacy and credibility. Congress has an obligation to approach serious accusations seriously. Democrats would have us simply turn a blind eye to mounting evidence of a family influence peddling scheme that implicates the president. This we cannot do. We owe it to the country to get to the bottom of these allegations, and that requires the House to objectively invoke its full investigatory powers, respect the due process rights of all involved, and lay all of the facts before the American people.
The Republicans have already spent 12 months on this exact investigation. They have obtained more than 100,000 documents, pages of documents, and dozens of hours of witness testimony. But there is simply not a shred of evidence proving any wrongdoing by President Biden related to his son or otherwise.
The fact of the matter is that this committee, which may go down as one of the most useless and worthless subcommittees ever created by Congress, is called the weaponization of the federal government. And the reason we all know now that this was created and stood up is that the Republicans are trying to flip the script and to distract from the fact that the true weaponization of the federal government with evidence and facts and support was done by Donald Trump and his administration and will be done by Donald Trump and any future administration. What we should be focusing on is Chairman Jordan abusing the power of his committee in the Congress to subpoena state prosecutors in an effort to undermine their prosecutions of his revered friend, Donald Trump. That is no place for Congress to be, no place for the committee to be. That is a true weaponization of the federal government.
Let's focus on something that my Republicans don't like to talk about, which is the impact of guns on both the fentanyl trade and the influx of migrants. Am I correct, Mr. Beer, that the cartels broadly rule the border in terms of the fentanyl trade as well as a lot of the migration? Is that accurate?
Absolutely. They charge a fee to cross the border illegally. They control the traffic. They force people to cross where they want them to cross. It is controlled by.
Sheriff Wayburn, do you agree?
Absolutely.
And Sheriff Wayburn, do you agree that the cartels are able to control the fentanyl trade and the border because they possess weapons, guns, that help give them the power and authority?
I haven't inventoried their weapons, of course, but they are a very powerful outlaw organization, and they do have tools.
Sheriff Wayburn, would you be surprised to hear that over 500,000 guns are trafficked annually from the United States to Mexico?
None of those figures would surprise me.
Right. In fact, there's only one gun store in Mexico. It is almost impossible to get a gun in Mexico. And so the cartels, who you've acknowledged, Sheriff Wayburn, and I'm sure, Mr. Cuccinelli, I think you've acknowledged that to me in the past, the cartels rule with guns, but they rule with American-made guns. And yet we are doing nothing to try to stop the trade, try to stop the export of American-manufactured guns to the cartels, which give them the power to run the fentanyl trade and to wreak havoc at the border. And that is why I introduced a bill, the Disarming Cartels Act. I urge my Republican colleagues who do not discuss guns once in their seminal border security package to join us in trying to actually solve the problem. And to solve the problem, you need to stop the export of American-made guns to the drug cartels so that that will limit and eliminate their power. Whatever complaints that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have about how the Department of Justice investigated a private citizen, Hunter Biden, you should ask Donald Trump and Bill Barr, who were in power at the time that this investigation was going on. So because there's no evidence, now we're going to move the goalposts, claiming an impeachment inquiry is necessary to gather more evidence. But Chairman Comer himself said earlier this year that he had received 100% compliance from the administration. And they can only cite to 2 low-level career officials at the Department of Justice who have not testified, even though their supervisors have. Just this morning, Hunter Biden showed up to the Capitol ready to provide evidence. The Republicans refused to take his testimony. So how can you sit there saying you need more evidence when you prevent the central witness in the investigation from giving you evidence? What are you afraid of?
Now, this also goes back to 2016 and the fact that Special Counsel Robert Mueller, the unanimous opinion of the intelligence community, pretty much everyone who looked at this concluded that Russia used false information on social media to interfere in our 2016 election. And the problem the Republicans want to rebut and undermine and distract from is that they did so to help Republican candidate. And so if you attack the Democrats as the real weaponizers of the federal government, then you get to flip the script and turn it on the Democrats and say, oh no, they are, and get to continue doing and opening up the avenues for additional real weaponization of the federal government. Now, Mr. Lukianoff, do you think there is a First Amendment right to distribute deepfakes online?
Is there a First Amendment right to distribute deepfakes online? Of course there is.
Okay. Now, do you think that there's a First Amendment right to distribute deepfakes online with the intent to interfere in an election?
If you add additional steps to it, it can potentially be criminal. Sure, but to create them and distribute them.
I'm not even going to waste our time getting into this because what you have just highlighted and agreed to is that this is a very difficult issue. The balance between the First Amendment and what is free speech and what is
respectively, Congressman,
I'm not taking it seriously
at all.
Sir, I didn't ask a question.
You said this was a useless hearing.
I didn't ask you a question, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to reclaim my time.
The gentleman has the time.
That the problem that we are facing in the post-2016 world where social media is used as a weapon to interfere in elections from foreign governments is that this is a difficult thing to navigate, that balancing the First Amendment, which all Democrats support, but the First Amendment is not absolute. There's obviously some speech that is not protected, and balancing the interests of free and fair elections is a complicated situation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Beer, I want to go back to a little bit about what my colleague from Texas was talking about in terms of the data. Obviously, it's self-evident that if there are more people in the country and a specific percentage of people commit crimes, there's going to be more crime, right?
Yes, the absolute number will increase if the total population is larger.
Okay. But you and the Cato Institute have done some work on this, and what have you, in terms of comparing the data that is available, which is limited, of the number of non-American citizens who commit crime versus those who are citizens of the United States? And just to summarize again what you have found.
Well, the U.S. Census Bureau data, which goes through 2022, shows that non-Americans or immigrants are 68% less likely to have committed a crime that put them in prison at that time. And if you look at it, break it down by legal status, you can say that 75% less likely for legal immigrants and about 50% less likely for illegal immigrants. And we keep hearing about why this is such a big surprise. It's not a surprise if you look at the demographic characteristics of immigrants. They're more likely to work, more likely to marry, particularly if you look at male immigrants. Men commit the vast majority of crimes in this country. Male immigrants work at a rate almost double when you control for education level than similarly educated Americans.
Right, and there are other studies that have been done. The Marshall Project in the New York Times found that between 2007 and 2016, there was no link between undocumented immigrants and a rise in violent or property crime in those communities. Sheriff Weaponization was talking about in Dallas, crime is down. Crime in New York City is down also, and we've had a significant influx of newly arrived migrants. So yes, of course, there will be more crime as there are more people. But if the argument is that our country is proportionately or disproportionately more dangerous and insecure and unsafe because of the influx of migrants, the statistics just simply don't bear that out. Is that right, Mr. Beer?
That's right. No one's saying we should continue illegal immigration. The question is, should we allow people to come legally to this country or not? That's the whole question. It's already illegal to come here illegally. So the question is, should they be allowed to stay, have a path to legal status, have a path to come in legally? And we keep hearing that there's this big threat. No, if the crime rate goes down, that means your likelihood of being a victim of a crime goes down.
I urge my Republican colleagues who do not discuss guns once in their seminal border security package to join us in trying to actually solve the problem. And to solve the problem, you need to stop the export of American-made guns to the drug cartels so that will limit and eliminate their power.